Hey, what's up, everybody? We figured it out. We did it. We figured it out. We're live. We're only 20 minutes late. That's not that bad, right? What's up, everybody? I'm going to go ahead and bring Nicholas on. Welcome to the VS Code weekly live stream, coming to you every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, or 8:30 a.m. Pacific, depending on what kind of technical difficulties we have. But listen, chat, for those of you who stuck around, hold on, let me check the comments. I hope y'all stayed hydrated. It's not a time zone issue. My bad. Thank you so much. And thank you to our producer who is sick and still made it in to fix my issues. We fixed all that. Thank you so much, Peggy. So y'all, if you stuck around and you're here, great call, because we have with us today a great guest. We're going to cook today with Nicholas Zakas. If you don't know him, he's SlickNet on X and pretty much everywhere else. Is that true, Nicholas? Is that where people find you?
No, not at all true.
No, okay.
Very different names on different. But if you just search for my name, you'll find me.
And Nicholas, if you haven't met Nicholas before, creator of ESLint, and I'm sure some other things, but I've at least known about Nicholas since about the start of my career, Nicholas, which was like, for me, which I think I'm going to date us both here, and I apologize for that up front. And that was like 2010, I think. But essentially, the second that I came onto the web scene, you were already a very well-known person. I remember going to your talks at FluentConf, etc. So, really glad to have you on the stream with us.
Yeah, that brings back some memories. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I've been watching your videos all this year, trying to learn more about Copilot. So I'm really excited to get to talk with you.
And look who else is, Pamela Fox is here. This is great. Yeah, this is another person. So Pamela works in Microsoft now, but when I was just a wee lad, back in 2010, I used to go to things like Google I/O, and I'd see Pamela speak, and I would think to myself, I would like to be like Pamela someday, but I never will be, and I'm still not. But at least I get to work with her, which is, I still can't believe that. It blows my mind. So Pamela, so glad to have you here today as well. So we have so this stream is really interesting. We were chatting about it before, but we're gonna cook today, and you've been doing a lot with, I don't say vibe coding. I'm not like a huge fan of that term. I don't know how you feel about it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that term either. I prefer to use AI-assisted programming because I feel like I'm still in charge. I still know what's going on. I just like some assistance as I go along.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like vibe coding sort of trivializes the importance of good code. But at the same time, like, it does a really good job of capturing the feeling that you get when you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're doing it and you're like, wow, this is kind of incredible. Like, it does a really good job capturing that feeling. And for that reason, I like it. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, I feel the vibes from time to time.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. So
Pamela is showing me here.
Back in 2012. All right. So Nicholas, do you want to go ahead and share your screen? Maybe let's just jump into it and start there. And
okay.
Because I know you were talking before, and you've got some process to show. So you've been talking about some of the stuff on Twitter. People, look, if you're on Twitter or X and you're not already following SlickNet, you should stop what you're doing right now and go do that immediately. What are you doing with your life if you're not doing that?
All right. So this has been a morning of technical issues. So yeah. We'll see if we can get this working.
The universe is conspiring. Y'all, don't let it happen. Your first VS Code Live. Well, welcome. we're so glad you're here. This is your chance, y'all, to chat with Nicholas and get your questions in.
All right, I'm gonna go crazy and do share. Well, I probably don't want to share the entire screen. That would probably be a little much.
Thanks for waiting, Bob.
Let's see.
Appreciate it.
Can you see this thing?
Yeah, beautiful. Now, Nicholas, this is where you're gonna hate me. It's a little small. Could you bump it up?
It's a little
Could you zoom in like maybe 2 to 3 times, basically to the point where you're like, this is unusable.
Okay,
How's that, chat? That's perfect. But chat, you have to understand how hard it is to use the editor at this zoom level. Yeah, that looks great.
This is pretty intense.
It's a lot.
So what I've kind of been hacking on, AI assisted programming on, is creating a clone of Pocket. If you're not familiar with getpocket.com, it's one of my favorite sites. It's going to be shutting down. So I thought, like, well, maybe it would be fun to see what it would be like to just create Pocket on my own. So
just real quick, Nicholas, what does Pocket,
Yep.
what does GitPocket do?
So Pocket really started out as like a read later app. So any place you go, you find an interesting blog or video or whatever. There's browser extension. There's also iOS and Android apps where you can just say like send to Pocket and it'll just be there later. It's the way that I pretty much have been reading stuff for the past 2 years. Is I'm on Twitter, somebody tweets about something, but I don't have time to read it. Just drop it into Pocket, and then later on, when I have time, I'll go back and read it.
Yeah, and I see the sad little banner up here at the top. Sorry to see you go, Pocket. But we're gonna cook up a Pocket clone today, I believe, or something that you've been working on for a while now.
Yeah. And this is something that I've done very little hand coding on. It's kind of been my experiment to see how far I could go with GitHub Copilot. So at the moment, it's just an Astro site.
Yeah, and your audio is breaking up just a bit, Nicholas. I think we talked about when your computer tries to do things, the hit that your video takes.
Better?
No.
Let's see.
We lost the screen.
Okay, I'm a newbie at StreamYard.
That's okay.
Excuse me.
So am I, apparently, since it took me 20 minutes to start the stream that I had to call in for help.
Okay. Let's see. Clicking share, nothing is happening.
Coming right back at y'all in just a second. Let's see who else is here. David is here. What's up? What's up, Julie? Hopefully Julie's still here. Daniel. I hope you're still here, Daniel.
Me too, Daniel. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, let us know you're still here, Daniel. Otherwise, we're going to cancel the whole stream. It's not worth continuing without you.
Okay, whole stream. Oh, okay, here we go. So now we got everything here. Great.
There we go. I'm going to add you back. Here we go. Oh, sorry, Peggy.
Go. Let's.
We got your browser up. Is that all right?
Yep.
All right, perfect.
So I'm just trying to load the Astro project here. So this is what it looks like right now. And again, this was all not coded by me. This was completely Copilot, where I just gave it a screenshot of Pocket and said, make something that looks like this. And I did a couple of iterations, improving some of the things along the way. But generally, this is what Copilot came up with on its own. I got a kick out of it adding just like the Astro logo next to Pocket in the corner, and then just a made up profile picture. Which I thought was
Wait a minute.
cool.
Where did it get the profile picture? Did it draw that?
No. So it's using, let's see here. Yeah, so it's from randomuser.me.
So is this like this person does not exist, or this is an actual person?
So I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure
Do
if
you
these
hover over
are
anything?
AI generated people or not, but
Yeah. If you're this fella, you're now famous on the live stream. I don't know who this is.
now
Should
internet
give this fella
famous.
a name. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Nicholas. It's Nicholas. Um, okay,
So
so but also for our chat here, Astro is what is Astro, Nicholas? Besides one of the coolest things I think that's come along in the past few years.
yeah, so Astro is a server-side framework, and it's really focused more on things that are mostly static, as opposed to things that are mostly dynamic, in which case maybe you want to use Next or Nuxt or something like that. So Astro is what I built my blog in. A lot of folks are using it for blogs. It's also pretty popular for e-commerce because product pages are mostly static except for some things that are user specific. So Astro is my server-side framework of choice when I'm building anything that I think at least is going to be mostly static with just some dynamic content inside.
Yeah, I absolutely love Astro. Cassidy Williams came on the stream once and demonstrated it, and what I liked about it was this kind of it's like static, but then you could just like throw Preact in and add interactivity to pages. Like it's really like the whole islands concept. Anyway, that's a whole different stream, y'all. You should definitely check out Astro. By the way, Nicholas, you can click hide on that little bar there, as Pamela was mentioning. There we
Thanks,
go.
Pamela. I think Pamela is the MVP of this
Of this stream, yeah.
so far.
As per usual. Typical Pamela. All right.
So sorry, you can see all this switching in between. So what I thought would be interesting to try to do with this is to implement authentication, or to have Copilot implement authentication for this project, because it's something that I don't really feel like doing on my own, and just kind of see how it does, because there's not a lot that's dynamic, at least at this point on this. But for example, we should not have somebody's face up here if a user isn't signed in. It should only be for a signed in user, and we probably just want a sign in link there if the user is logged out. And then recent saves is really just for the signed in user. So that's something that you don't want to appear on the homepage if you're not signed in. And then saves, which is just the user's saves, is also something that you should not be able to get to unless you're signed in. So that seemed like a fun thing to try to put together.
That's one way to describe it. I was mentioning before the stream that authentication is one of the things that I would really, I don't know, I'd feel very iffy about vibing that, just because it's so hard. So hard. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it.
It is. Okay, so I'm going to be using this approach that I had in my blog, which was up earlier. Oh, hey, my screen went blank. There it is. Where I like to go through and think about the different steps of the process and who's doing each of those. So gathering requirements, designing a solution, implementing the solution, and testing and debugging. And so I like to use Copilot in these different ways in order to step through this process. And that's what I'm going to do here. In case you want more information, that's what I'm doing. So going to actually just first start a new terminal and make sure that Supabase is running. So using Supabase as the database and also for authentication, with the theory that that should make this easier. So just want to make sure that's actually up and running first.
Supabase is so good, y'all. I'm a huge fan.
Let's see. No, it is not. All right. So this can sometimes be, I don't know if you've run into this, Burke, but sometimes for me, when I am using Supabase and I shut off my computer and come back, start up Docker, it starts up just like some of the Supabase services, but not all of them. And so I have to go in and...
I'm going to be I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't actually use the local. I mean, I have them, but usually I just go directly against the. We were talking about this on X because I like the MCP server, and I don't think the MCP server works locally. I think it only goes against the cloud. But it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like the agent can freaking do migrations and
It's true.
stand up and knock down tables. It's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like it. In the
You're pulling layers and doing things, and I think it's taxing your
okay,
system a bit. Yeah. I'm just gonna
yeah,
drop
and
it
I thought it
here.
had finished doing this before we went on the air. So I'm a little surprised that it's going back to this. But can you still hear me while it's doing this?
Yes, we can. You're still good. I think after this, Nicholas, you've got like a great excuse now to buy like a Mac Pro, a Mac Studio or a Mac Pro, something with like 256 gigs of RAM, and 89 cores, whatever it is. All right.
Yeah. So I can barely hear you as you're coming through, but as long as you can hear me, I will at least mention I set up this Copilot instructions file initially with the help of Copilot after it had created just kind of this scaffold of the application to give it as much detail as it possibly could. And it went through and I think it did a pretty good job. So tech stack, project structure, the development commands I found to be like really important because these were missing initially, but just to tell Copilot actually how to use Supabase itself was something I was missing earlier that turned out to be helpful to add in. And then again, like all of this stuff, Copilot just kind of added in on its own. The database section I added in because when I was telling it to use Supabase, it kept going out to the cloud to try to do it. So just needed to add in there that this is a local instance and the port that it's running on so that would understand how to work with that. And then and more of the Copilot stuff, just kind of outlining how to name things, how to organize things, even some performance considerations. So even though Astro is primarily for like things that are primarily static, it can do dynamic pages, but I'm telling Copilot here that I prefer to do static generation whenever possible. And to use like server islands where I can, and just really not start jumping into the JavaScript stuff unless it's absolutely necessary.
All right, so you're
of Astro, where if you're submitting a form back to the same page and that page was statically rendered, then it can't actually handle the forms.
all right, so your audio is breaking up just a bit, Nicholas, in your video, so it's hard for me
to tell. Sorry, I heard you interject there a second.
Yeah, we there's I don't know if it's your machine or the network or what, but there's a pretty big delay. So we can hear some of what you're saying.
Sorry, everyone. The Docker is still downloading all kinds of stuff and messing up my connection here.
Hopefully so while that happens though, Fuel's asking a great question. Nicholas, I'll see if you can hear me, and then if not, I'll give my answer. But why is Supabase so popular? Oh, looks like we've lost Nicholas. All right, so while Nicholas comes back, y'all, this is a day, is it not? Exciting. We'll do it live. Why is Supabase so popular? It's a great question. Well, so first of all, for those who don't know what Supabase is, it's a managed, I mean, they pitch themselves as like an open source alternative to Firebase, and it's sort of a managed service for database, authentication, edge functions, storage. It's a cloud provider. And the reason why I think it's so popular is because it's just so dead simple to use. And I mean, the development experience is really nice. So what Nicholas is actually doing right now, I think what's causing his machine to kind of grind there is that the Supabase provides this really nice local development experience where it spins up essentially Supabase on your machine as in a series of Docker containers, and you can develop locally against those containers, right on your machine. So you basically get all of Supabase running locally, and it's just a really, really nice experience. Although I was saying, chat, when I use Supabase, I go against the actual, I go against Supabase itself. So let's look here. Let's actually do this. So let's run up against, let me just make sure, fix that. And my dashboard here, Nicholas is back. Oh, I had Nick back this. Hey, you're back.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so it seemed like as Docker was downloading stuff, StreamYard was just like, you know what? I don't have enough bytes coming down, so I'm out of here, and just kicked me out.
I'm going to solve this problem for you by just removing you from the stream.
Yeah, it's
All right.
I like to say too, I find like when using Claude 4, it's like the most likely model to fix the failing test by just removing the test.
I mean, that's one way.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like StreamYard just kind of did that to me.
So I was trying to answer this while you were gone, but why is Supabase so popular?
Yeah, so I think Supabase is popular because it's really an all-in-one solution for a bunch of stuff that you kind of need in order to get an application up and running. So it does your database, your data storage just in general, your relational database, but then it has authentication built in, including all kinds of auth providers, has S3 compatible storage in it. It has like queuing and cloud functions. I mean, it's basically like a whole infrastructure in one project that you can also just run locally to try stuff out, or so I've been told, because apparently it's not working so well this morning. I'm going to give that another shot in the background here as we're talking.
No problem.
So while see if it'll start back up.
Yeah, while you do that here, let's see, what are we doing here? Let's remove this. Let me add this, share this, do that. Let's grab the thing. You just let me know. You feel free to interject when you feel like you're back up and running here. So like this is my dashboard, and I think you'd get a certain number of free projects. I don't know what the limits are, but it's fairly generous.
Yeah. I think I think you're allowed 2 free projects.
That sounds right. So you can see here in my table. So here's my tables, right? So you can see the different services they have here. So database, authentication, storage, edge functions. Oh, and real time. That's another nice thing, like the real-time database access, which is huge. You don't really realize how big that is until you don't have it, and you're like, oh, I need real-time here, and then you have to go do it yourself. It's so bad. This is one of those things that sort of luxury when you have it.
Yeah, and I think that was really the start of Supabase as like a Firebase clone to get that real-time stuff going. Or like an open source Firebase clone.
Yes, and in fact, I think like if you go to like the Supabase homepage, I believe that's what they say, right? Or maybe it's GitHub. I feel like they say that it's an open source alternative to Firebase. Yeah, we're building the features of Firebase using enterprise-grade open source tools. And if you sign up for this and you get your free projects, and if you don't use them, I don't know what. Oh, it's because it's just showing the tab. If you don't touch your database, the CEO, I don't know if it's the CEO or the CTO, it's Ant Wilson. I don't know who he is there. I feel like, he's like one of the top people, will literally email you himself and be like, hey, your project has been scheduled to be paused, right? Because you haven't used it in 90 days. And you have another 90 days. And after that, it's going to be removed, but we'll archive your data and you can download it. And so the joke is always that, like, but if Ant Wilson emails you, you've been slacking. It's time to get to work on your side projects. All right.
Yeah, that actually happened to me last week. So yeah, this is not going well. I'm going to give this one more kick and see if I can get it going. I think otherwise we can try to proceed without Supabase and just see what Copilot does.
Okay. It should be interesting. Can you go against like the deployed one instead?
So I don't have a deployed one set up. I started there and then quickly discovered it would be easier to do it locally. So I'm going to give this one last kick and see, as always, like this was working perfectly yesterday. So not entirely sure what is going on today. It's just stage fright, I guess.
It's always that way when whenever you try to do something when people are watching, it always goes that way. Site says free projects are paused after 1 week of inactivity. Limit to active projects. Thank you, Bob. Yeah. And then you get a nice email from Ants, and you'll and you can ping him on Twitter and he'll respond. Like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah. And so if you go, we're talking about the talks that I gave, a decade ago or so, you'll notice none of those involved live coding, because I always felt like that would get me. If I was on stage trying to live code, like there are people who are great at it. I just never thought I was going to be that good at it. So I always made sure that I wasn't doing that. And today's experience feels like validation of that approach.
Yeah. And, in the era of AI, this gets even harder because before chat, like when you would do a live coding, you could practice and you could get pretty close to knowing that it was going to succeed and you could build in backups and things. But now when you get on stage and you have to program with AI, you just don't know what it's going to do, right? Like it might work. It might work because it's worked the 10 times before that, or it just might forget that it knows how to do simple math and there's just nothing you can do about it at all whatsoever, but just roll with it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is not going to work at all.
Okay.
So I apologize for that.
No worries.
But
hey,
if you're game, we can see what Copilot comes up with that might work if Supabase would come up.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, this is Let It Cook. So this is exactly what we do. We just do it live.
All right. So we'll see if I've learned anything from sharing my screen last time. All right. So what do we got? Do we got VS Code now?
I'm going to bring you back here. Maybe I will. Let's remove that. Add this. There we go. You're back.
Okay, Inception. So we should be in VS Code now.
We are.
Excellent. Okay, so the first step in the process, which I learned from Burke earlier this year, watching some other video that you were doing, was to create a PRD for what I want to happen, which is product requirements document. And that is just functional, like here's what should be happening, and not technical, like how to do it. And I like to use GPT-4.1 for that. Seems to be pretty good and rational about its decisions. And I did, for ease of use, create a prompt that helps me with this, that just outlines what I want it to do and also the file I want it to end up in. And just, yeah, using headings and bullet points to make it easy to read.
You're using prompt files as well. I'm curious to see how you're going to. So in this one, your task is to turn your requirements into product to a PRD. This includes your stories and acceptance criteria. Okay, if you don't have enough information, ask me. Insert the design into a markdown file. The file should be named this. Okay, so where do you specify like what the PRD should be about?
So I'm doing this in the chat box itself.
Ah, okay.
So over here, I have my /PRD, and then we need to implement authentication. There should be well, I'm going to call it login because otherwise it'll say sign in. Link in the header. The user should be able to create an account if they don't have one. And so let's say the recent saves on the home page should not be visible to signed out users. The /saves page should not be accessible to signed out users. When signed in, there should be a profile picture in the header. So that's about all I want to tell it at this point. And just see what happens, because this is fundamentally what I have in my brain right now. And I know it's not specific enough for most models to actually get it all correct. So hopefully in this process, GPT-4.1 is going to create a PRD that specs this more completely out for us. So hopefully if my internet can handle it with StreamYard running in the background.
Two things at once. What is a PRD? You went over that a bit, but maybe just another round on PRDs.
Yeah, so I think actually looking at what was created here will help. So a PRD is a product requirements document. And if you were writing software, let's say circa 2008, maybe, chances are you would have encountered a PRD in real life where a product manager would go off and gather requirements and then come back and write up a document of what those requirements were based on what users are supposed to do. So I always like to say, product managers used to always love saying, like, can we just add a button there, right? We want a button there that does this. And in order to get the details for that, they would write out product requirements document, and that would be the deliverable to the software engineers in order to have something to refer back to as you were implementing the change. And so this PRD that Copilot made for us is for authentication. It's an overview, implement user authentication, enable users to sign up, log in, and access personalized features, what the goals are, sign up and log in using email password. Again, like I didn't specify how they should be able to sign in. So that's actually pretty important when you're dealing with Supabase, because you could choose to not allow passwords for login and to just use auth providers instead. So that's correct, and filled in some of the info that I needed. Show a profile picture. I mean, this is mostly the stuff that I said. And here's the interesting part, which is the user stories, which is saying from the user's perspective, what's expected. So as a new user, I want to create an account so I can save and organize articles. As a returning user, I want to log in to access my saved articles. Right? Sounds right. Header authentication state, and with the login link, and then profile picture, so I know I'm logged in. Specifies the conditional content as a signed out user and a signed in user. And then I like to add this in acceptance criteria, because that is something that when humans write PRDs, a lot of times is in there, is how do I know that the feature is working the way that it was supposed to work? Well, these are the things you have to check off to make sure that that happens. And then it actually added in on its own out of scope stuff, social login, don't want that, password reset, profile editing. And here's some of the questions that it had along the way. Should we display an error or redirect to the homepage if a signed out user tries to access /saves? And then should we support email verification? So we can iterate on this and just say, if a signed out user tries to access -saves, redirect to login screen, and then no email verification necessary. And then because it's GPT-4.1 and sometimes it likes to tell you what to do instead of doing it, I always like to add in at the end, update this file to reflect these answers. Because I don't know, Burke, have you run into that with GPT-4.1 at all?
What's that? Sorry, I was looking at this slide.
It'll just start telling you what to do.
Oh, instead of actually doing it?
No worries. Instead of actually doing it, it'll say, hey, like you should type this into the terminal and then you should add this into this file, but it doesn't actually do it.
Yes. So I do. I love 4.1, and also I get frustrated with 4.1 for those exact reasons. Like I call it, it has like a lack of agency where it wants you to do things. It's happy to give you answers, but it doesn't. It's not really good at being proactive itself.
Yeah. So here it just updated the PRD to say how we resolve these questions. And then there's some design notes here. But I didn't really want that to be in there because I don't think that is the product manager persona's job to tell us how to do technical stuff. So I'm going to remove that. And now we have this PRD. So the next step in my flow is I want Copilot to design the technical part of this feature. And to do that, I have another prompt. I'm going to keep this first and just start over. And I have the what I call the architect prompt, which is you are a software architect for this application. Your product manager has provided the attached PRD outlining the functional requirements for a new feature. Your task is to design the implementation and ensure all acceptance criteria are met. Create a step-by-step guide detailing how to implement your design. Include all details an LLM needs to implement this feature without reading the PRD. Do not include source code in all caps, because I had that problem. When I was doing it initially, it would just start like blurting out all the code, but it's not what I want for this step. I just want a description of what to do. Again, if anything is unclear, ask me questions about the PRD or implementation. If you need to make assumptions, state them clearly, and then where to insert the file and how to name it.
And all of this is in your blog post, right, Nicholas? I put the link in there. All these prompts are? Okay. And y'all, when you create these prompt files in VS Code, if you can just show people real quick, Nicholas, just to open the command palette and do new prompt file so they can see how to do this. So if you just do new prompt file, right, hit enter, and then so Nicholas has it in his project here, but if you do user data folder, it'll just put it in VS Code so it's available to all projects, which is what I like to do for stuff like this that I'll probably be using in other projects, because this workflow is really good. In fact, one of the first things I do after this stream, Nicholas, is I'm going to go to your blog and pull these prompts and get them into my editor ASAP.
Yeah. So that is creating the do it prompt. I just always run everything in agent, so I've never bothered adding that. But
same.
Yeah, it's creating a new prompt. Can also, of course, just create a new file and do it yourself. So anyways, back to the architect prompt here. Yeah, so for this part, I like to use Gemini because I just find that Gemini is a lot more detail oriented when it comes to technical designs than the other models are. I haven't tried any of the thinking models with this, so I'm not quite sure about that, but at least for the ones that are shipping with Copilot, so far I've found Gemini to be the best at coming up with steps that can easily be followed. So I can do architect, and then I'm going to attach the PRD here. And all I'm going to say is just use this PRD to create the technical design and just kind of let it go from there.
So this is really interesting. When you were mentioning that video that I did where I created the PRD, Nicholas, I used Gemini to create that PRD because of this exact thing, because it is so detailed. Now, so this is really interesting. I think that it's great for people to see like where to use what models and what people are using them for. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I also only really use Gemini for this type of task because it seems to be a bit slower for me. Again, maybe it is my machine more than anything, and it also tends to run into issues where sometimes it just doesn't respond at all, or rate limit like more frequently than the other models do. So I like to just use it a little bit where necessary and not all the time. So here's our technical specification that it just made for us. You can see it talks about like Supabase auth. Primary goal is to enable sign up, login, and log out, render UI components. And now we'll go through these steps. So environment setup, create a .env file, and then add in Supabase URL and Supabase anon key. Pretty sure I already have that in here, which will probably be, yeah. Won't really matter because can't get Supabase up and running, but hey, it is what it is. And then Supabase client initialization. So I don't have a client already in this project. So it's talking about making one and importing create client from this NPM package. Be interested to see if it'll actually install it on its own or not. Sometimes it includes that step to install it, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes when Copilot's implementing it, it figures it out, and sometimes it doesn't. Next step is implement the authentication middleware, which is similar to other frameworks. Astro uses middleware in order to intercept requests for certain routes and then figure out what to do with it. So it makes sense to implement the middleware, implement authentication check in middleware in Astro. And then getting a little bit more into the UI stuff of creating the login and sign up page. This is important here. Export const pre-render false, because that tells Astro not to try to generate the page as static. And if the login page is also going to handle the form submission, then it cannot be static. And this is actually, this comes from the Copilot instructions. When I ran through this before, it never got that in the first time. So I ended up adding it to the Copilot instructions. And just how the form should work. And this is important, the form will post to login page itself rather than doing any client-side JavaScript stuff. And then create a logout endpoint. So it decided that it should make that as an API call rather than a page, which is correct. And then updates to the header component. which already exists to say if the user is signed out and if the user is signed in, and then protecting the saves page. So remember, the open question in the PRD was what to do if somebody tried to access the saves page that wasn't signed in. And I said to redirect it to the login page. So it got that there. And then conditional rendering on the home page for the recent saves section. And then a few more technical notes about how to implement stuff. And then again, out of scope things to hopefully help the model not to go too far in that direction.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because once you give it to Claude, which I assume you're going to do, Claude does have a tendency to be like, oh yeah, you're probably going to want to like have password reset. I probably need to do that too. Let me go ahead and implement that. It's like, no, please. It's okay.
Yeah, I like to think of Claude as like the friend you invite over for dinner, and then they excuse themselves to go to the bathroom, and then 5 minutes later you find them like going through your drawers in your bedroom. It's definitely challenging.
It's like, yeah, it's like the opposite of 4.1 where it's like no agency versus like way too much all the agency in the world. I'll just make myself at home here.
Yeah. So yeah, now we have the text spec, and notice that it created it right alongside the PRD, which is what I asked for. So it just makes it easy for me to go back and forth when I need to. So then the next step is to implement, and I have a prompt for that as well, which is you're a software engineer tasked with implementing the feature described in the attached file. If anything is unclear or you find potential errors in the implementation steps, ask me before starting. You must complete all steps in the document. After finishing, verify that all steps are complete. If not, return and implement the missing steps. I did find when I was experimenting with this early on that sometimes Copilot would skip steps and things wouldn't work. And it took me a while to figure out why they didn't work. So just adding that in there, and then repeat this process until all steps are done. If you must deviate from the steps, explain why and ask for confirmation before continuing. Verify the acceptance criteria are met before considering the feature complete. So this tends to work pretty well. And I'll be honest, I usually use GPT-4.1 for this, but would you like me to use Claude and see what happens?
No, yeah, use 4.1 if you want to. I mean, as I'm looking through this, I'm thinking to myself, this actually looks like a prompt I would give to 4.1 because it is so concise. Do this, follow the steps exactly, don't deviate. Whereas Claude, in my experience, is pretty good about reasoning about this stuff and figuring it out on its own. The benefit to 4.1 though, y'all, in Copilot is that it's so fast. Like, I don't know if you've experienced this yourself, Nicholas, but it's like orders of magnitude faster than anything else that's in there.
Yeah, it's noticeably faster for a lot of things. And I think for this particular type of task, which is you have the steps listed out explicitly. I want you to do this, and then do this, and then do this. Like, there's no reason that you can't do 4.1 for that. Like, it's really good at following steps. But it's, again, needing to be explicit with like, you are tasked with implementing the feature. Like, don't tell me what to do. Like, I want you to do it. It's your job. So yeah, we'll switch this over back to 4.1, go with implement. And I think, honestly, I don't need to type anything else in at this point. I think it will figure out. Yeah.
Maybe add a good luck. /implement, good luck. So while this is running, Nicholas, I saw this interview with Sergey Brin recently where he was talking about how, and I don't want to misquote, but the general gist was that models perform better if you threaten them. And I feel like this is something that people generally know. It's this idea of like you can tip the model or you can threaten it. And I've actually seen some videos making fun of this where people are like talking to the model and being like, do this or you go to jail, right? No, fix it. It's still broken. Fix it or you go to jail. I don't know. Are you threatening models yet? Are you that far along in your AI journey? I think Nicholas he froze up again. The machine is struggling to do 4.1 things and handle the live stream. Let's see here. Check with the chat. If you threaten OC. No, what are you talking about? They don't have a memory. It's okay. You're all good. Oh no, we lost Nicholas again. Remember, they don't have a memory. They won't know. They won't remember that it was you, right? You just tell them that never happened. I didn't do that. Let's see here. What else is up, chat? While we wait for Nicholas to come back. Yeah, exactly. AI do the grunt work and do the interesting stuff on my own. Yeah, I agree with this. And I think that when people it's this whole, if you go back to the like, is AI going to take people's jobs? I don't think so. If you've used AI before, then you understand that you really have to be able to, what's happening, especially architecturally. It's more important than ever, like gluing the things together, especially in the back end. It can create a login form, but yes, like having it do the grunt work so that you can do the stuff that you really want to do is the vibe. I like that. Let's see here. Some people have talked about 3.7. So Pamela, you had to up here. Yeah, so in agent mode, say yes, just do it. Yeah, so for 4.1, I've experienced the same thing. 3.7 Sonnet instead for agent mode. Yeah, Pamela, I agree with that. Claude is also my go-to in agent mode, but I use 4, and the reason why is because, and I think Pierce can't be here today, and James is, who knows where James is? He's like running around the globe somewhere, but I believe they told me that, Pierce told me that with Claude 4, you get prompt caching, which means that you're going to use less tokens if on 4. And so I use 4 just so I don't get rate limited as quickly. I don't want to get rate limited. I want to run out of premium requests. We run out of premium requests just like y'all do. Nicholas is back. Hey, man.
Hey, so yeah, this is, I didn't know that my internet connection was this bad until today.
Time to upgrade that DSL. Yeah.
Apparently we do not like doing a StreamYard and anything else on the internet at the same time. Just keeps crashing me. So I'm not sure where I lost you.
4.1 was running and I was talking about threatening models, I believe.
Yeah, so I heard you about threatening models, and my thing is that I treat the models like I would treat the computer on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is like, I don't threaten it, I'm not mean to it, but I'm also not super nice to it. I'm not saying please and thank you. It's just do your job, more or less.
Yeah, very clinical.
All right, so let's get back in. Appreciate everybody bearing with me on this.
Hey, this is real life. This is Let It Cook. This is what we do, y'all. We cook and we do it. We do it for real.
So yeah, we had GPT 4.1 going through, saying what's going to do, created Supabase client, which is right here, and it did not install this Supabase JS. So I will ask it to do that momentarily. Created login.astro, created logout.ts, created auth, created header, created saves. All the steps have been implemented. So great. Can you, I don't know, this is kind of silly, but sometimes say like, hey, this is something that you should have done.
Just put the command in. Yeah, I wonder if you added like yeah, that's gonna do it. If you added a system-wide custom instruction that's like that says something like, I don't know, if you ever need to install a package, just do it. The thing is, like, I have this same experience with 4.1. I'm just unsure of what to tell it to get it to do things. I don't know if I need to be like super encouraging, like, yo, you're awesome. You can do anything. You can do anything in the world. You don't need to ask for permission. I don't know how to do it. Um, Nicholas, you still there?
Okay. Uh,
No, I think it's hopefully its terminal can make it through the install process without StreamYard crashing on it.
okay, I'm still here. Still here.
All
Excellent.
right. So you survived.
I survived. I made it through the dreaded npm install. So yeah, this is the client, which is pretty standard. It's just, whoops, creating the client and then pulling in the environment variables to create the client. And this will be used elsewhere. So then I'll check like env.example. Yeah, just empty because don't have Supabase running, so we can't actually grab that information. Header, it added this at the top for locals.session, and then checking to see if there's a session. And if so, then we do have profile and then a logout button. And then if not, then there's the login button down there. So got that. The middleware to handle authentication. This is interesting because it's creating a new client instead of using the one that we created in this supabase.ts file. Not a big deal, but you know, the perfectionist programmer in me, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then storing information. Let's see, got trying to pull access token from the cookie, and then storing the session information in context.locals, and then yeah, continuing on. So that looks about right. Logout route is, so this time it actually is using the Supabase client that it created. Pre-render false, which I'm pretty sure you don't have to do in an API endpoint, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt. And then creates an API route. So signing out from Supabase, deleting the cookies, and then redirecting to the home page. So that looks about right. And then index.astro. This should be, yeah, just checking if there's a session to show the recent saves. That looks correct. Login page. So this is, if you're not familiar with Astro, it has this front matter in .astro files, which are pages. And this is where you can put any kind of JavaScript that you want to run on the server when the request comes in for that page. So in this case, if the method is post, that means we're posting back with the email and the password. And we need to pull that in and then sign in with the password. Oh, also looks like it might be doing sign up with the same page. So we can take a look at that. And then, yeah, username, password. Oh, yeah, added one button for sign in and one button for sign up. A little confusing, but it works. And then on saves, and this is just because the middleware is already running, we're going to check the session and say if there's no session, then redirect to the login page. So that all looks correct. And assuming that works here, we should be able to see, yeah. So this is the
login
page. We don't have the recent saves anymore. And we do have a login button. So if I click that, wow, that's a really ugly login page. But
that is an MVP if there ever was one.
it is what it is. And so I think what it probably did is that it didn't apply the layout component to this. Yeah. So I can say is use the layout component on this page instead of all the, I don't know, boilerplate HTML.
Yeah. So hopefully you don't crash out again here, Nicholas. Yeah, Pamela, so this is interesting, this mixing of server front end and back end code in the same in the Astro files. Yeah, that's also a vibe, I think. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Nicholas?
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, she's talking about the mixing of server front end and back end in the Astro files, right? Like essentially you're doing everything in the same project, right? And the only way to know is that you have to be able to look at Astro and know, well, if it's in the API folder, then it's actually the back end. And if it's not, then it's probably front end. You can easily get confused. And actually, I think that, I don't know how I feel about it either, but the reason is because I feel like it's a really good way to put your E and V keys in production and not realize that you're doing it.
Yeah, so Astro actually has a feature where anything that, let me see if I get this right, where any environment variables that are meant to go to the client, they have to be prefixed with the word public. So it kind of helps you to not leak credentials unexpectedly. Like if you try to pull in an environment variable that doesn't begin with public, like you just don't get it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think Next has something similar, but I have noticed that agents will create public environment variables and slap your keys in them. And then you can be like, hey, I don't think that key should be public. And they'll be like, oh, you're totally right. We should absolutely move that to the API. So you want to be careful. Yeah. Always be careful when you're vibing, folks.
Yeah. And I'd say too, you have here in Astro like pages, and then anything that's a page ends in .astro. So that's intended to render something. And then anything that ends in .ts is just an API. So implicitly on the back end. But in any event, so after adding the layout component to that page, this is what we ended up with. So a lot prettier than what we had the first time. And kind of similar to other frameworks, Astro encourages you to create layout components to be able to apply your styling. And I found this kind of interesting because it combined the sign in and the sign up screen, which maybe you want, maybe you don't. I would prefer to have it separate. But certainly as like a first shot, like I didn't say specifically that the sign in and the sign up page had to be separate. So this is perfectly reasonable. And then the other thing is saves should not be viewable. Right? Yeah, so it's redirecting me to the login page. So pretty much got everything that I asked it to get. I'm not going to put in any more prompts so that I won't kick myself off unnecessarily. But yeah, so that's kind of the process that I follow for any non-trivial implementation. And with a few tweaks, especially if you're good about keeping gotchas in your Copilot instructions file, it seems to come out pretty well.
That was awesome. And so I'm going to go directly, and let me bring this up one more time here for everybody. This blog post that you had. Let's see. Oh, it's already up. Just add it back here. So you can get all of Nicholas's, the whole process, all of the prompts are right here. And let me I'll put this in the chat as well. So we have this, it's in there like 3 times already, but just so you know, I'm doing this directly. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing the rest of the day, probably, is messing with these prompts and seeing what kind of mileage I get out of them based on what I'm doing already. What else? Nicholas, this is your chance to what else can people do? I think you have a newsletter and some other stuff.
Yeah. I got a newsletter. Links right up there at the top of that page. Probably the easiest way to find it. And it's just once a month. So I'm not trying to fill your inbox with all kinds of stuff. It's just my thoughts on whatever's going on that month. Sometimes it's AI. Sometimes it's what it means to be like a tech lead or staff engineer. Sometimes it's catching up on JavaScript frameworks or JavaScript runtimes. Just whatever I'm thinking about, that's what I end up writing about. And also has a little section just telling you what I've been up to in the open source world. If you are into MCP servers, I would also encourage you to check out, I have an open source project called Crosspost. And that has an MCP server that lets you post to multiple social media platforms at once using an agent. So actually, if you go back to the homepage and post to social media using Claude Desktop and Crosspost, this nice. Walks you through. Crosspost started out as just a CLI that I was using to post updates on my socials whenever new open source stuff was released, because I just hated doing that manually. So it was originally designed to run in GitHub Actions as part of your release process. Then I realized I could tie that into an MCP server and allow you to do that from an agent. And the new version actually also checks the length of your message. And if it's too long, it'll create shortened messages for you. So you don't have to go through that process either. So if you want to check that out, that's basically the only way that I post on social media right now. And I just find it a lot nicer because I don't get distracted by reading posts when I go on to post something.
Yes, it's a rabbit trail. So this is great. I've actually been looking for something exactly like this because I run into the same thing where I want to post something, I want to post it across, but I don't want to actually go here, 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 and here. So this is amazing. I'm checking this out as well. All right, I want to wrap up here. Do you have, Nicholas, do you have a few minutes for a few more comments from chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see here.
How can I not after my disappearing acts throughout the whole time?
So there was one at the top that I'm going to go back to. This person might be still here. They might be long gone. Let's see here. Let me scroll down and find it. Let's see here. A lot of folks. Oh, here it is. Nikhil, are you still here?
Do you feel diminish your brain power? So I don't. One, because I'm not offloading all of my thoughts. And I feel like what I am trying to do more is optimize the workflow I was already using. So like this was my process, what I showed today. Like this is my own process. If you ever interact with anybody on the ESLint team, if you've opened an issue for anything that's like non-trivial, we always go through this same process of like, okay, tell us what it is that you're trying to do. Like, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? Just functionally, like, don't tell us what you think the code should do. I want to know what the pain point is. And then try to come up with a solution for that. And again, for anything that's non-trivial on ESLint, we have an RFC process that basically requires you to write a technical specification that describes what it is you're going to build. And that applies to everybody. Like, it doesn't matter if it's me or an outside contributor. Like, anybody who wants to build something non-trivial on ESLint needs to put together an RFC, essentially a tech spec, to do it. And then our guidance on the RFCs has always been that you need to include enough information so that somebody other than you can implement the RFC. Like, there can't be context that's stored in your brain that people need to actually implement it, which is, again, exactly what I did with this process, was telling the architect prompt there to include everything that an LLM needs in order to implement it, and then going in and doing it. So really, the only change for me is that I have these agents doing those steps as part of my process instead of me needing to do them manually. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on the journey that feature is taking from the idea to the implementation. That is all still in my brain. So I feel pretty comfortable with what I'm asking the agents to do versus what I'm still doing.
Yeah, that's really well said. I feel like if you find yourself offloading the thinking onto the model, that you may want to, just generally speaking, chat, you may want to sort of reevaluate your workflow there. I do agree that you should be doing the thinking. The model should be doing the implementing. The model is a tactician. You are the strategist. And Nikhil is still here. So good to know. All right,
thanks for sticking around.
Yeah. All right, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining the stream. So sorry about your bandwidth woes and I want to send you a new computer, Nicholas. I don't have any money to do that, but if I could, I would. I just want you to know that.
Well, I think as an added bonus, we kind of learned the limits of Thunderbolt trying to do all of this at the same time.
Yeah, there we go. Good stress test. All right. Thank you so much, chat. Thank you, Nicholas. We will see you back here next Friday, where I think Netlify may be on the stream with us. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, we're going to cook all day as we do. Thanks again for being with us. Make sure, look, if all you should be doing today is reading Nicholas' blog post, checking out these prompts for yourself, and vibing all day. That's what you should be doing today. Build something cool. Thanks for being with us. Nicholas, thanks for being here, and we will see y'all next week. Bye, everybody.